Well, it is an absolute crappy day. It's been nothing but rain, snow, sleet, some sort of mixture of it. But Jen made me a wonderful cup of tea. And so I thought today would be a great day to do a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time. That's been asked of me by quite a few people. And yeah, so here we go. So what I want to talk about is solar, but not so much in the sense of what we're using for solar, but in the sense of what are we powering in our cabins. So the solar system that we use, in our opinion, or at least in my opinion, is a really good system. I've gone through what we have in terms of equipment and the type of system we have in other videos, and I'll link those in the bottom description. But this video is more about, what are we using on power? What are we using on our solar system? What type of refrigerators? What other components and appliances are we doing? And in this video, I'm going to give you some tidbits, things that might help you prolong the amount of power you have stored. Now, before we get into that, let me just preface this whole video with this. Think of this like your home on grid, right? We have a fuse panel. The fuse panel powers the house. When you're on grid, you have the grid providing your power. And in for lack of a better term, it's unlimited, right? When we're on solar, we have a limited amount of power we can use. Now we can calculate the exact amount of power we use, and then from there, we can calculate how much power, given the appliances we have, that we're going to be consuming. And based on that number, that tells us how many days of power we have to run our home without resupplying our supply of power via the sun. So in our case, we have approximately 3 to 4 days of autonomy, meaning we can run 3 or 4 days with no replenishment to the system. After that, one of two things is going to have to happen. Either the sun is going to have to come out, or we're going to have to turn on our generator to power up the batteries. So that said, let's go see what appliances we use. So the first question we get asked a lot, and the first thing I want to talk about is refrigeration. Not only the refrigerator, but also the freezer. Now, could you run a normal refrigerator, the one that you would typically find in your home, the one that you probably have in your kitchen? Probably. But there are better ways to, or more efficient things you can do while you're on solar. The first and foremost is chest freezers. Chest freezers are a solar system's best way of refrigeration, and there's a reason for that. When you go in your kitchen and you go to grab a pop or you go to grab some food and you open that door, all of the cold air that's stored is going to fall on the floor. Why? Because when you open the door, cold air falls down, right? When you shut that door, your refrigerator, if it's open long enough, the condenser is going to kick in. And when that condenser kicks in, it's going to start using electricity. With a freezer, when I open this door up, like that, all the cold air settles in the bottom of the freezer, okay? I can leave this open for a few minutes, and it's really not going to change the temperature inside of this. Now, in our case, what we've done is we actually purchased 2 of these 7 cubic feet Midea freezers from Costco. We have one of them that we use as a freezer, and this one here I actually converted to a refrigerator. Now, there's a few things you have to know in converting this, and we'll get into why I converted it, other than opening it up and cold air staying in just a second. But when you convert this refrigerator to or this freezer to a refrigerator, how you store your food is going to change. You have to really get creative, because unlike being able to open your door and you have all of these shelves and you can put all your food nice and neat, when you open this, it's a chest. It's just a big hole, right? So you got to get creative as to how you're going to store your food. That was probably one of the bigger challenges to getting comfortable with. But moving on to why we did this. The reason we did this is very, very simple, and it does go back to opening up the refrigerator door. The longer that this freezer can stay cold means that the less the condenser is going to run. In our case, this condenser runs probably about 5 to 10 minutes per hour. Now that is not a lot. This freezer here runs at about 150 to 160 watts. Now what that means is that for every hour it's consuming about 150 watts, okay? But because it only runs for about 5 or 10 minutes, we can do the math and see that it's actually only using about 20 watts every hour. So in terms of, using this thing as opposed to a much bigger refrigerator freezer combo, it just makes solar sense. Boy, that's a new term. And so when you do the math over the course of a day, you're looking probably at about, I don't know, I'm just gonna wing it and say maybe 300 or 400 watts in a 24-hour time period that we're consuming to power this refrigerator / freezer. So in my opinion, this was the only route to go when it comes to solar, because again, we have to be very cognizant of the power that we have and how much power we can use. And so converting this chest freezer to a refrigerator made sense. To convert these, it is very simple. You can buy the conversion kit on eBay, on Amazon. You might even be able to buy it at your local hardware store. All it's going to do is you're going to just replace the thermostat and replace the dial on the outside of your freezer. Again, by doing so, it allows you to control the temperature at a higher temperature than say a freezer. So a freezer you'll want to keep around 0 degrees, a refrigerator around 30 to 40 degrees, somewhere in there. I don't know the exact spec, but it's somewhere in there. With a freezer, it's just going to get so cold, it's going to freeze everything. So yeah, so that is the biggest takeaway, I would say, from refrigeration, is definitely convert a freezer to a refrigerator. It will save you a ton of energy. Okay, so we are sitting here again with our refrigerator, but since we've got some stuff on top of the freezer right now, and to have the conversation about the freezer, this is the freezer. So we'll just talk about this one. Now, having a chest freezer. Again, we have a 7 cubic foot freezer, which is the exact same model as this. Again, we picked them up from Costco. And the reason we went with this size is if we got something too big, it's just Jennifer and I, we don't have a lot of frozen food. And so, this size just worked for us. In your case, you might want to go smaller, you might want to go bigger. For us, we have a 7 cubic foot, but we also have a 3.5 foot that sits outside in our outdoor kitchen. That freezer and this freezer, or our freezer here, they both are plugged in from about 6 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. at night. Now, there's a reason for that. Between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., these freezers will run normally. Meaning, again, they only run about 5 or 10 minutes per hour. So over the course of 1 hour, we're only going to consume about 20 or 30 watts, whatever that math turns out to be. But then from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. at night, to conserve power, what we've done is in each one of these freezers is a frozen bottle or frozen milk jug of water and a frozen 2-liter jug of water. And the reason we have those in there is so that if the power goes out, as long as you don't open this, the temperature will stay. And so what the 2 bottles of frozen water does is it helps maintain the temperature inside of these freezers for that during that time. And it also allows us to conserve some of our power. We don't want to do it with the refrigerator simply because the temperature does fluctuate a little bit more in a refrigerator, but with the freezers, it tends, when it gets down to the 0 degrees, it does tend to hold that temperature a little bit better. So we run our freezers just as we normally would, other than the fact that they shut off at 7 p.m. and then turn on at 6 a.m. And for us, what we use are timers. It just seemed a lot easier to go buy a timer, at Walmart and plug a timer into the wall, set it, and then we don't have to worry about, maintaining that. So we have no issues with power consumption on these, and it is well below, what we would consider as too much power. So the next item that we have running 24/7, and it's really a vital item to Jen and I's being able to live out here, is our WeBoost cell phone booster. Now, we purchased this in 2020, and it has served us very, very well. This specific one is an RV65. This little contraption is connected via this line to an outdoor antenna that's pointed in the direction of the closest cell phone tower. The other side of that little doohickey is plugged into that doohickey, and that doohickey over there is what sends the signal within the cabin. The whole purpose of this, is because out here we don't have very good cell phone signal, and the first year we came out here, we ended up jumping in Canada's service all the time, and it was just absolutely terrible. And so now that we've installed this, this has been a complete game changer in terms of us being able to use our cell phones out here. Now, this thing does run all the time, and as you can see, there are 4 lights on this, and it does actually get pretty hot. There's not a lot of power, and this is one of the items that we have to maintain all the time. We could shut it off at night, but we have found that it really doesn't make much of a difference in terms of how much energy or how much power it's using, and so we just leave it on. It has played such a vital role in our ability to live out here that we don't want to screw it up by constantly unplugging and plugging it in. On a side note, we do love the RV65 by WeBoost. For us, being where we are, it worked and made sense. There are a lot of different products from WeBoost. Be sure that if you're going to look into a cell phone booster, do your due diligence, find something that's good for you. Again, for us, the RV65 was it. So another item that we have that we use on our solar system is our battery charger. Now we've got a couple of different battery chargers that we use, and for the most part, these are negligible usage or consumption. We use these little AAA rechargeable batteries for our headlamps, and we use AA's for some of the flashlights that we have and some of the larger lights that we have around the cabin, and everything we charge on this little Energizer. Now we also have a small solar charger for these batteries, but honestly, for the amount of power that's consumed when we charge these, it just doesn't make sense. This is so much more efficient, so much faster. Now, on the topic of batteries, it is, in my opinion, spending the money on these rechargeables is well worth the investment. We have a ton of these AAA's, and we have quite a few of the AA's, and we have everything that uses batteries in our cabin on these rechargeables. Using the rechargeables is a little expensive with the upfront cost of it, but when you factor in how often we use them, and more so how expensive batteries are. It just makes perfect sense for us. The usage on this, power consumption, again, is negligible, and so we recharge these as often as we need them. So another item that we use on our solar is our coffee maker. Now this is an older coffee maker. It is not an energy efficient coffee maker by any stretch of the imagination. When we plug this in, it consumes probably right around 2,000 watts. But you know what? That's okay. Because the reality is even though it is a high wattage appliance, it's only on for less than 10 minutes. And so you do the math, the 2,000 watts divided by 60 minutes, it gives you how many watts you're actually consuming and pulling out of the battery bank. You'll find that as long as it's not plugged in for any extended period of time, it's really not that much. And so we make a pot of coffee every morning. We run the coffee, it runs, and then it's probably plugged in for maybe an hour or so. But here's the thing, after it's done brewing the coffee, the heating element inside will only kick on periodically. And so as long as we don't leave it in there and leave it on, you know, again, for too long, we're not using that much power. Sometimes if Jen and I both wake up at the same time, we'll get our coffee and then just unplug it right then. So another big appliance that we run, not as frequent as we used to when we lived in the city, is our TV. Now, in the city we had a big nice TV, big surround sound, all that good stuff. Here we've downsized to a 42 inch. I think it's an LG TV. We like it, it's good. For us it works great, the size does. We do still have the Sony surround sound and DVD player. And we do use these to watch movies. Now the TV runs at about 150 watts an hour. The DVD player is about the same. Now in the LG TV, and I'm not sure if this goes for all brands of television, but there are some settings that we can change and that we did change here to help reduce the amount of power being consumed. It has to do with the background and some of the effects and so forth. And so I would implore you that if you're off grid, go into your television settings, because you might be able to shed some of the power consumption off by doing that. So you certainly want to make sure that you're unplugging your devices, just because you don't want to be wasting electricity on things that you're not actually using. And that really goes back to when your parents told you definitely turn off the lights when you leave a room. Shut your lights off when you leave the room. So when it comes to being off-grid, one of the things that I read and I hear about a lot is that you can't have a microwave off-grid. Well, that's not entirely true. So we have a microwave. It is a cheap microwave that we picked up from Walmart. And this is a 0.5 or maybe 0.7 cubic foot space. And it advertises as a 700 watt microwave. Now, I'm not sure where they get the 700 watts from, because I can assure you that this pulls up, the draw on this is about 1500 watts. But here's the thing, you know, if we needed something reheated real quick, if we needed, you know, if we wanted a cup of coffee but we didn't want to get the wood stove going, you know, in 30 seconds and 45 seconds, we can have some hot water. If we wanted to make, you know, oh gosh, I don't know. I like the little macaroni and cheese cups. Again, we need to heat it up, throw it in here for 30 seconds, and it's done. The power consumption, even though this is a high wattage appliance, when you look at how often we use it, it's negligible, you know. It will certainly draw a lot, and I really would not recommend putting anything in here, you know, for more than a few minutes, and certainly not defrosting anything in here. But to use it for small, you know, items, you know, popcorn maybe, which is probably the longest time setting we would put on it, it's fine, you know. And the other thing is right now we are at the back end of winter, so we do have more gloomy days than sunny days. But the reality is come summer, when we have a lot of sun days, we can use this thing all day long. So if you watch a lot of our videos, you'll know I am a big fan of DeWalt. And I have a really nice 20 volt cordless set from DeWalt, plenty of tools. Well, these tools here all have batteries and they need to be charged. Well, we charge all of my batteries on the solar system that we have, and honestly, you'd never know. I mean, it uses such negligible power that it really doesn't make too much of a impact on our overall consumption. So we have chargers here in the cabin, and I also have some chargers out in the shop. And again, I mean, I've got some 1 amp hour, I have 2 amp hour, and I also have a couple of 4 amp hour batteries, and I never even really can tell that they're being charged, even when they're charged, when they're plugged in, and I can monitor how much power is going out on my system. Additionally, we also have a vacuum cleaner. Yes, we have the Dirt Devil Power Stick, and it's the Power Stick Lite, and we use it. We don't really use it a lot. We do use it when we have little spills and things like that, but since we have the vinyl flooring in here, most of what we'll use to clean up is just a broom and some Swiffers. But when we do need a vacuum, we do have this one. Again, power consumption wise, it's not that much, and we're not going to run it for a long time, so you know, we can get away with using it you know, whenever we need, or you know, as needed, without worrying too much about how much power we're consuming. Now, all of this stuff that we're talking about, it's really doesn't much matter in the summertime. See, in the summertime, we're going to have a ton of sun coming in, and even when we do get a couple of storms through here, it's maybe a day or two, and the system that we have will adequately provide all the power that we need through those storms. Most of this is simply really for the winter time when we don't have as many sun days, and so we've got to make sure that we're being cognizant of how much power we're using. So another item that we have that we use, well, quite a bit, is our instant hot water heater. Now this is an EcoTemp, and it does use 110 volts, primarily because of the blower that's inside of it. Now, right now it is unplugged, and the reason for that is because if I plug this in, that little LED light comes on. Now, it might not be that big of a deal, but that is using power, and it's using power that I don't really care to consume at the moment because I'm not using it. What this does is tells us what the temperature of the water coming into the box is right now. And again, frankly, it doesn't much matter because no one's using the hot water. So we unplug it, we save that electricity, we don't really need to worry about it. Overall, this uses very, very little electricity. And as a matter of fact, I've used a couple of these different EcoTemps, and this one is by far, hands down, the best one we've had. We absolutely love it. Gives us instant hot water. The only downside of this particular model is that we need to make sure we have at least 40 psi water pressure, and even though the pump that we're using today is rated for that, we're not getting it all in all of the different faucets and so forth. We do get it in the shower, which is really the most important one, but as far as the bathroom sink and kitchen sink, we're not getting the pressure that we need to turn this on. And so what we've done is I have another 12 volt pump that we're going to be installing come the springtime, and that should be able to give us the hot water in the kitchen and then also here in the bathroom. And what you just saw was our satellite dish. Yes, we have satellite, which we needed for Wi-Fi. Why? Well, these videos that we do prior to the last month or so, we would actually have to go to town to upload them. And frankly, we got tired of doing that. Not only that, we got tired of sitting in McDonald's to wait, waiting for these videos to get uploaded. So we went ahead and we did get some Wi-Fi. This is through HughesNet. and we did get a really good deal on it, so that's why we did it. I'm not sure if we're going to keep it because after this deal, the price is going to go up quite a bit. But for right now, this is working for us. The reason I'm bringing this up is because obviously this is on, and very much like the RV65 WeBoost cell phone booster, this stays on 24/7. The power consumption on this router is not a lot, but it is something that we have to be aware of because, you know, with all these lights on and everything that's working on the inside, that is consuming power, and it is consuming power every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it is certainly something that we need to be aware of. The reason we keep it on and we don't unplug it, like say all the other appliances we've kind of gone through here, is because I don't want to screw anything up. Very much like the WeBoost, you know, unplugging it and plugging it back in, it forces the unit to have to reboot. And I just, call it what you will, I'd rather play it safe, and in our case we have enough storage of electricity that we can go ahead and let this run 24/7. But it doesn't use a lot, but it is something that we have to be cognizant of.